Sitting here, I'm reading my Bible, and this is the introduction to the New Testament as according to Ryrie. So, we're going to take a look at it together and see what the old guy has to say. Introduction to the New Testament. The name given to the second half of the English Bible is the New Testament, which literally means New Covenant. See Luke chapter 22, verse 20. The word covenant means an arrangement by one party which the other party involved could accept or reject but could not alter. The Old Testament primarily records God's dealings with Israel on the basis of the covenant given through Moses at Mount Sinai, while the New Testament describes the arrangement of God with men through Christ on the basis of the New Covenant. The Old Covenant revealed the holiness of God and the righteous standard of the law and promised a coming Redeemer. The New Covenant shows the holiness of God in His righteous Son. The New Testament, then, contains those writings that reveal the content of this New Covenant. The message of the New Testament centers on, number 1, the person who gave himself for the remission of sins, Matthew 26 through 28, and, number 2, the people of the church who have received His salvation. Thus, the central theme of the New Testament is salvation. The Gospels introduce the Savior. The book called Acts of the Apostles describes the spread of the good news about His salvation through a large part of the Mediterranean world of the first century. The letters give details of the blessings of that salvation, and Revelation previews the culmination of salvation. The arrangement of the books of the New Testament. The New Testament includes 27 books written by 9 different authors, unless Paul wrote Hebrews, then only 8, over about 50 years' time. These books fall naturally into 4 divisions. Number 1, the 4 Gospels. These describe the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. Although they were written later than many other books in the New Testament, it was natural that, in the order of the books, a priority position should be given to these accounts of Jesus' early life and ministry. The book of Acts. This is the history of the beginning of the church and the spread of Christianity throughout the Greco-Roman world. The 21 letters, Romans through Jude. Since archaeological discoveries have shown that letter writing was a common means of communication in the first Christian centuries, it is not surprising to find that most of the books of the New Testament were in the form of letters. The Apostle Paul, the great missionary and theologian of the early church, wrote 13 or 14 of these letters. They were addressed to churches as well as to individuals, and they teach Christian doctrine both in a formal way, as in Romans, and in application to life situations, as in 1 Corinthians and Philemon. And number 4, the Revelation. This last book describes the ultimate triumph of Jesus Christ and His people in the future. I like how Revelation gets its own book category. The order of the books of the New Testament. As already suggested, the order of the books of the New Testament is logical. First comes the Gospel, which records the life of Christ, then Acts, which gives the history of the spread of Christianity, and then the letters, which show the development of the doctrines of the church along with its problems, and then finally, the vision of the second coming of Christ in Revelation. Excellent. The order of the writing of the books, however, was approximately like this. First comes James, then Galatians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Mark, Matthew, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Romans, Luke, Acts, Colossians, Ephesians, Philippians, Philemon, 1st Peter, 1st Timothy, Titus, Hebrews, 2nd Peter, Timothy, Jude, John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and then finally, Revelation. So Revelation still last. Sorry, Revelation. The collection of the books. After they were written, the individual books were not immediately gathered into the canon or collection of 27 that comprise the New Testament. Groups of books like Paul's letters and the Gospels were preserved at first by the churches to whom they were sent, and gradually all 27 books were collected and formally acknowledged by the church as a whole. This process took about 350 years. In the 2nd century, the circulation of books that promoted heresy accentuated the need for a distinguishing valid scripture from other Christian literature. Certain tests were developed to determine which books should be included. Firstly, was the book written or approved by an apostle? Second, were its contents of a spiritual nature? Third, did it give evidence of being inspired by God? And number 4, was it widely received by the churches? Not all of the 27 books that were eventually recognized as canonical or accepted by the churches in the early centuries. But this does not mean that those were not immediately or universally accepted or spurious. Letters addressed to individuals, Philemon, and 2nd and 3rd John, would not have been circulated as widely as those sent to churches. The books most disputed were James, Jude, 2nd Peter, 2nd and 3rd John, and Philemon. But ultimately these books were included, and the canon was certified at the Council of Carthage in AD 397. Although no original copy of any of the writings that comprise the New Testament has survived, there exist more than 4,500 Greek, I don't know what that word is, MSS dot? You'll just have to post about it in the comments, of all or part of the text, plus some 8,000 Latin, it's that MSS again, and at least 1,000 other versions into which the original books were translated. Careful study and comparison of these many copies has given us an accurate and trustworthy New Testament. And that is Ryrie's introduction to the New Testament. Thanks for watching. This has been Ryrie with Adam Lentz. Thanks very much for watching. God be with you.